Story time on how my boyfriend married my mom and got her pregnant. It's giving stepdaddy. It's giving betrayal. Anyways, so boom. I was 17 at the time, my boyfriend was 20, and my mom was 35. So me and my boyfriend were together for 2 years, but it was very rocky because he couldn't keep his third leg in his pants. I would go to my mom for advice, but she was always on his side. You know that one family member or friend you go to for advice, and instead of hearing you out, they say, "What did you do?" Yeah, that was my mom. I would be like, "Hey mom, George cheated on me." Let's call him George. And she would say, "Well, honey, what did you do to cause George to cheat on you?" Like, what? Anyways, one day I decided I no longer wanted to be treated like crap, so I left George, and I left George for good. But guess what? He was always still around because my mom would always invite him to dinners and movies, and that was just the beginning. Like for part 2. Part 2 on how my boyfriend married my mom and got her pregnant. Yes, it was giving stepdaddy. So like I said, I broke up with my boyfriend because he was a serial cheater, but my mom was still inviting him over. I would tell my mom to stop, but she kept saying that he was family. I was so pissed at my mom that I literally always stayed in my room, and when he would come over, I would hear them downstairs watching movies and laughing. I thought it was weird, but I definitely didn't think they would have gotten married, let alone have my little sister. Well, 2 weeks after our breakup, yes, just 2 weeks, one night when my ex-boyfriend George was over, I all of a sudden didn't hear them downstairs watching a movie, but I did hear my mom's room door slam shut. Then I heard thumping, and that wasn't about to happen on my watch. I ran to open the door, but the door was locked, so I started knocking. My mom opened the door, and I seen her hair in shambles and my ex on her bed. Like for part 3. Part 3 on how my boyfriend married my mom and got her pregnant. Yes, stepdaddy, we get it. So like I said, I heard thumping in my mom's room, so I ran and opened the door, but it was locked. So I knocked. She opened the door, and her hair was in shambles with my ex on her bed. And might I add, he was naked. I cried and said, "How could you do this to me?" Do you know what this lady said? She said, "Well, sweetie, I understand him. You guys weren't compatible. And we're getting married Sunday, so this is something you're gonna have to get used to." I attacked my mom, fought her, beat her actually, and I moved in with my dad, who was disgusted by her. I bet you guys are hoping she didn't actually marry him. Well, she did, and she ended up pregnant. I had the last laugh, because fast forward a year later, and my mom is crying in tears. And y'all wouldn't believe why. The story gets crazier. Like for part 4. Part 4 on how my ex married my mom and got her pregnant. He graduated to stepdaddy, but not for long. So like I said, fast forward a year later, I had the last laugh because here is my mom crying her eyes out. Why, you may ask? Oh yeah, he was cheating a lot. And with younger girls. He even tried to get back with me. I laughed at my mom and said, "Oh, I thought you understood him, You must be doing something to make him cheat. Karma's a bee." And my mom was pregnant with a girl, but unfortunately she had a miscarriage. Rest in peace to my sister. That's the only part I'm actually sad about. She ended up divorcing my ex, and now she's left with nothing. No husband, 2 failed marriages, no relationship with your daughter. And don't feel bad for her, guys. She went for her sister's man next. But that's a whole nother story.
Storytime about one of the most embarrassing things that has ever happened to me in high school. So a little background information. I was in my freshman year of high school. Well, spring break was coming up. Well, the whole year, my friend and I hadn't been to one single party. So we decided that we wanted to try and go to a party every single day of spring break, which was about to be super difficult because we had to worry about my strict-ass parents and my neighbors. A little background info on my neighbor. My neighbor is this girl who's in my same grade, and she literally hates my guts. I don't know why, but literally anything that I do, she'll go and she'll tell her mom, and then her mom will tell my mom, because my mom and her mom are best friends. But before we know it, Saturday comes around, and we go back to school on Monday. We did not make it to one single party. Well, later that night, we found out that one of our friends was throwing one. So around 11 o'clock, everybody's sleeping, and I walk out my back door, hop over my fence, and I start heading towards the road where my friend was going to be parked. You know, who do I see fucking sitting outside on their porch reading a fucking book? My fucking neighbor. Like for part 2. Part 2 about the most embarrassing thing that ever happened to me in high school. So like I said, the bitch that I hate is sitting out on her porch reading a fucking book at 11 o'clock at night. So I crouched down so she couldn't see me. I run to the car, and my friend and I finally go to the party. Well, we get to that party and it's really boring, so we decided to go to a different one. And the party that we were about to go through was being thrown by the kid that I really liked. So I start hanging out with him when we get there. I'm drinking a lot, having so much fun, and I really have to go to the bathroom. And I didn't know where anything was at all. So I grabbed my friend and we're looking around everywhere for the bathroom. Because when I asked him, he was super drunk and really couldn't explain to me where the bathroom was. So we were pretty much left to fend for ourselves. But we ended up not being able to find a bathroom, and this is where I had to improvise. So my friend and I go to the laundry room and we see the litter box in there for the cat. Well, at this point, I was desperate, so I just went in the litter box. Well, 30 minutes later, the cops show up to the party. And everybody had to hurry up and leave because we did not want to get underages. Like for part 3. Part 3 about the most embarrassing thing that ever happened to me in high school. So like I said, I went in the litter box and then the cops showed up. We all ran because we didn't want to get underages. I was able to sneak back into my house without anybody knowing. But when I get to school on Monday, everybody's talking about the party. And apparently the kid that I liked who threw the party, his parents didn't know that he threw one at all. And this was like during first period. So I went to text him and ask him if he was grounded because we were supposed to hang out the next day. And I realized that I am blocked. So I'm thinking, what the fuck, why does he have me blocked? So I told my friend that he blocked me, and she goes, it's probably because he saw what you did in the laundry room. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, there's no fucking way that he knows. Because there was a door that led to the outside in the laundry room, there were cameras in there. So everybody saw this video of me. People were posting it on their Finstas, posting it on their Snapchat stories. It was so fucking embarrassing. Not to mention the bitch that I hate who lives next door showed my parents the fucking video and I was grounded for fucking 4 months. Story time. My dad got my half-brother's girlfriend pregnant. A little background information. This all happened a few years ago. Anyways, my brother was fresh out of high school and he had been dating this girl named Serena for 2 years. And my dad, for some reason, hated her. At least that's what we thought. Well, my brother didn't have a license at the time, so every time that she came over, she needed somebody to drop her off at home. So my dad would always offer to drop her off at home, even though he literally hated her. And he could have just ordered her an Uber, which is what he did with all of my friends. Well, the one night her parents called and they were like, hey, like, is Serena still there? She hasn't came home yet. And my dad said that he was dropping her off. So I called my dad and he said that they ran out of gas on the side of the road. So that was just like one incident. Well, the next morning my mom goes to get in the car for work and she finds a thong in the car. So she brings it in the house and she asks me, hey, is this yours? Meanwhile, I had never seen them before. So then she goes and asks my half-brother and my dad's whose they are, like for part 2. Part 2 about how my dad got my half-brother's girlfriend pregnant. So like I said, my mom found that thong in the car. She came and asked me if it was mine. I said no. So then she asked my dad and my brother whose they were. So she asked my dad first. He said, I don't know whose they are. He said they probably just fell out of Serena's bag. And then she asked my brother. And my brother said, oh, those are Serena's. So after that, my brother came in my room. And he was like, do you think it's weird that the same underwear that Serena was wearing before she left ended up in the car? So I guess she had the underwear on literally before she fucking left the house. Dumb bitch alert. Anyway, so a few weeks later, Serena breaks up with my brother. Well, around the same time, my dad started staying after work really late, like every day of the week. Well, long story short, my mom went through his phone because she felt like something was going on, and she reads a conversation between my dad and Serena. Like, oh, I'm so sad that you couldn't come to the ultrasound. So then my mom and him divorced, and he's currently raising his child with Serena. Story time about how I walked in on my fiance and another man. So a little background information. My fiance and I have been together for 4 years. And we started dating our junior year of high school. Well, we all went to Florida after we finally got engaged. And he invited his best friend and I invited my best friend. And I always got vibes that he was like really touchy with his best friend and just like other guys. But I was definitely not one of those people who was about to tell my boyfriend how to act. During Truth or Dare or something, someone would dare him to kiss like a guy and he would just do it. And I didn't really get any off vibes from that because I just did not think that way. So like I said, we all invited our friends to Florida. Well, I think like the third night that we got there, we all decided to go to the club. And we were having a super good time. Like everybody was just doing their own thing. I was with my girls. We were hanging out, taking shots. My boyfriend and his best friend, they were doing body shots off of each other. But my boyfriend said that he had drank too much, so his best friend took him back to the hotel room. Y'all will not believe what happened next. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how I found my boyfriend and his best friend hooking up. So like I said, my boyfriend's best friend took him back to the hotel room. And I really wanted to spend time with him because we were only supposed to be there for like 3 days. So I decided I would go back to the hotel room early to go see him and make sure that he was okay. Well, I get to the hotel room and all the lights are off. It's very quiet and I think that everybody's sleeping. So I take my shoes off and I go to our room. and nobody's in there. So I go to his best friend's room, and when I open the door, I see him and his best friend laying on the bed naked, making out. I literally stood there in shock for like 2 minutes, and they just like did not hear me, did not look over, did not see me or anything. Eventually, I literally was like, what the fuck? And they both look over, and my boyfriend is literally, it's like he saw a fucking ghost. So I leave the room, he gets dressed, he comes over to me, and he starts talking to me. Like for part 3. Part 3 about me finding my boyfriend and his best friend hooking up. So like I said, after I catch my boyfriend and his best friend naked together in bed making out, he takes me into the living room to have a talk. And I thought he was just gonna say, oh, I'm drunk, it didn't mean anything. Nope, complete 360, total opposite, not at all what I thought. He was like, listen, like, you know, I've been meaning to tell you this for a while. I just didn't know how to tell you. My parents are super religious. If I ever told them that I was gay, they would never accept me. They would cut me off, everything. And his parents were super fucking rich. So I kind of understood. But I was pissed the fuck off. Like, you wasted so much time in my life just to fucking tell me you were gay. So he was like, we can still have the wedding and everything like that. You know, I understand if you don't want to be with me. So we kind of made a deal that, you know, if I stay with him, I can pretty much have access to all his family's money. I can buy the house that we were going to buy. So currently, while he is hooking up with other men, I have a boyfriend, but we just act like we're together.